Crystal, are we on?
Yes, you can start speaking. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm gonna just give people about a minute to log in and then we'll start our session. So just 1 minute. All right, it's been about half a minute, so I'm gonna go ahead and start. Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Housing 101, Housing Search. This is Module 2. I'm Maria Mello, the Director of the Multi-Service Center and a partner with Housing Cambridge. I'm introducing Ryan McCluskey. He's our presenter for today's session. If you would like to use the CART services for closed captioning, please click on the CC and show the subtitles to turn on the captions on. I also wanted to let you know that this presentation is being recorded. Only the presenters will be recorded and participants and participant questions will not be identified. So today's webinar is part of the city's launched Housing Cambridge Information to Open Doors campaign. I wanted to say a few words about the campaign, and then we'll explain how how people can ask questions during the presentation. And then I'll turn it over to Ryan, the Housing Search Case Manager and the presenter today to present his session. So Housing Cambridge is a year-long multi-department outreach, education and information campaign that's designed to promote and inform residents about all things housing, including resources and services, and essentially how we can help tenants of Cambridge with their housing issues. The City Manager's Office, Community Development Department, Human Rights Commission, Department of Human Service Programs, which the Multi-Service Center falls under. We have been working together on a comprehensive platform because we are committed to improving the housing experience for our residents. So through this campaign, we've been offering monthly training sessions. So we've had several sessions right now. And if you missed any of those sessions and would like to see those sessions, please, some of the topics were fair housing, eviction prevention, home ownership, and other housing related topics. So they're recorded and you're able to view them. So please go to the city's website at cambridgema.gov and you can look them up. Also, Module 1 to the housing search should be up as well so that you could look at. So share this information with your family and your friends and, get the word out there about Housing Cambridge and the services we are providing. So at this point, I want to introduce you to Crystal Rosa. She is works with the Human Rights Commission and she is the technical guru for Housing Cambridge. And so she's going to explain to people how you can ask a question. Crystal?
Thank you. Give me 1 sec. I was actually answering a question already. Let me share my screen and let's see here. Oh, move your little faces. Here we go. Present. So as you'll see, the chat box has been disabled, or it should be. We're encouraging everyone to submit a question through the Q&A box. You can send something anonymously. You just need to make sure that box is clicked or checked. And the presenters will be answering them verbally throughout the presentation, or we'll be leaving them at the end, but we'll be moderating and paying attention to those questions. So please feel free to start sending questions along as the presentation goes on. So I'm going to stop sharing, and there we go. Go ahead.
Thank you, Crystal. I think before we start the session, Ryan will be presenting and will let me know when people can ask questions, and I will read the questions to Ryan. Ryan will answer. So go ahead, Ryan, take it. It's all yours.
Oh, Maria, Crystal, thank you very much for the introduction. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. I hope everyone can see that. If not, we're in trouble. So I want to thank everyone again for attending this afternoon's Housing 101 workshop that's going to be focused on housing search. Again, like Maria mentioned, I'll be taking periodic breaks throughout the presentation to leave room for any questions that might come up. So we have a lot to cover today. So overall, we're going to be going over some required documents you're going to need during the housing search process. Important information regarding your voucher, if you're a voucher holder, where to search for housing, questions to ask during the housing search process, spotting red flags during the housing search process, briefly go over the apartment inspection process if you are a voucher holder, and most importantly, overcoming housing barriers, how to address those. We'll also be touching on move-in cost assistance and different agencies that can help you secure housing and provide some financial assistance for you. So without further delay, I know this sounds simple, but one of the most important things when you're beginning your housing search is make sure you have some vital documentation ready to go. It sounds simple, but sometimes the most important thing can lead to a successful housing search and securing housing either in the market rental, or with a subsidy is just having the basic documentation ready to go. That includes a photo ID, proof of income, a copy of your voucher if you are a voucher holder. Current credit report is very valuable. This isn't a necessity because different landlords and property managers will have different types of rental applications. But if you were to fill out just a general rental application, that's really beneficial to have. Again, not needed because sometimes landlords or property managers want you to fill out their own. But if you have them ready to go, that doesn't hurt. Again, first impressions are very important when you come for a housing search. So if you come prepared with all these documents that these landlords will need to screen you, it will make you look good. So examples of photo ID, valid passports or passport cards, driver's license or state IDs, native travel cards, certificates of naturalization, a green card, military ID would work, or a certificate of citizenship. Copy of your voucher. I mean, if you are, applying for units, landlords and property managers go on to know that you are indeed a voucher holder. So having a copy of your voucher on hand to show them is very beneficial as well. Proof of income. This is very important. I mean, one of the big things landlords look for is they want to make sure that you can afford the rent in full or your portion of the rent. So make sure you have proof of income ready when you attend the viewing. That includes pay stubs, tax returns, bank statements if necessary, a letter from your employer just verifying your salary and your hours. If you receive any Social Security benefits, try to have an award letter within the last 30 days. Any disability insurance, any pension paperwork, or if you have any income through a court order, or if you're currently collecting unemployment, have the unemployment award letter available as well. A credit report. This is something that almost every landlord and property manager is going to do when they screen you. So if you come with a recent credit report to a viewing ready to go, that's going to score you major points for the property manager or landlord because it saves them some work. There are 3 major national credit reporting companies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can obtain a free copy of your credit report from all these companies simultaneously at least once a year. Massachusetts residents are entitled to 1 free credit report per year from each of these credit reporting agencies. You're also entitled to a free credit report if you're receiving public welfare assistance. You've been denied credit or housing within the last 2 months. You are unemployed and will be applying for a job in the next 60 days. You have reason to believe that your credit report contains inaccurate information due to fraud. If you are not entitled to a free copy, the reporting agencies cannot charge you more than $8 for a copy of your credit report. There was also a national consumer reporting company called First Advantage SafeRent that a lot of landlords and property managers utilize when conducting background checks. And we'll touch upon First Advantage SafeRent a little later in the presentation. Any questions so far about any of the documents or how to obtain any of the documents that I just went over? Or anything in general so far?
So Ryan, I don't see any questions in the queue.
Okay. So next, we're gonna go over things to know if you are a voucher holder, which some of you may be. Important things to know about the voucher. No matter if it's Cambridge Housing Authority or Boston Housing Authority, all the housing authorities have payment standards that are basically, they tell you how much you can go up to in terms of rental search. I put an example of the payment standards for Cambridge Housing Authority on the right. And as you can see, the payment standard changes based on unit size and zip code. So they usually provide you this information when they award you the subsidy. But if for some reason, if you lost that paperwork or you can't find it, you can go to any of the housing authorities' websites, and they do have that available on their websites. So when you're conducting your search, just be very mindful of how much you can go up to, if it includes utilities and your unit size. So just be very, very mindful of that when conducting your search. Also, be very aware of the voucher expiration date. That is located about halfway down the page of your voucher. I have it highlighted there. They usually give you, 60 to 90 days to secure housing. So just be very aware of when that expiration date is. Continuing off the expiration date, the housing market in Massachusetts is very, very competitive, and a lot of folks aren't able to secure housing in the time frame that they're allotted. So if you're nearing your expiration date for your voucher and you haven't been able to secure housing, you can ask for an extension to your assigned leasing officer. Your leasing officer is usually on the copy of the voucher itself. So when you do that, you want to be able to show that you haven't been sitting there doing nothing, that you've been actively engaging in housing search and you just haven't had any luck. So when you are making these calls to landlords and property managers, make sure you're recording that. Get yourself a notebook or a notepad and record the dates and the places you've called and try and get housing. If you attended any apartment viewings, I would make sure you record that so you can provide all that information to show as proof that you've been trying hard to get housing, but just haven't had any luck yet. Extension requests are not guaranteed to be granted, but like I said, if you're providing proof that you've been trying and you haven't had any luck, that's going to help you considerably. And don't wait till last minute to ask for an extension. Don't wait till the day before or the day of your voucher expires to reach out to your leasing officer, because most leasing officers of various housing authorities are very, very busy, and they might not be able to approve anything day of. So I'd give yourself at least a week to ask for that formal extension request. Any questions regarding the vouchers?
So Ryan, I have one question, but it's a question around how do undocumented immigrants navigate housing, ways for undocumented immigrants to navigate housing.
It's a fantastic question. Unfortunately, we don't cover it in today's presentation. However, we did cover it in the first housing module presentation, which I think is available on the website, the Housing Cambridge website. If not, we can provide that to you. But it's a great question, and there are some resources for individuals who are undocumented to secure affordable housing. But unfortunately, it's not something that we're covering in today's presentation.
Well, it's on module 1, so people
Well,
can.
it is on module 1, yep.
So the resources are again at cambridgema.gov, Housing Cambridge, and you can look at module 1 to answer that question. The other question is I used my voucher last year. How long will it take me to use it again?
So I assume if you use your voucher last year, I'm assuming that they've secured housing with the voucher and they're asking if they can move to a different location. That's how I'm interpreting that question. Is that correct?
That's how I would interpret the question as well, Brian. But
Yeah.
it's yes.
Yeah, so typically, if you have a mobile voucher and you have a private landlord, usually you have to honor the terms of the lease agreement, which is usually 1 year. But you're not beholden to stay in one unit forever. You can absolutely apply for different units as long as your voucher is active and you're providing your current landlord with adequate notice that you'll be moving to another location. I hope that answered your question. Any other questions, Maria, regarding the vouchers?
No other questions. And yes, generally, I second what Ryan said is that it is 1 year. Usually you have to fulfill the term of the lease. So it's generally a year.
All right, so we'll launch into the next section, which is where to search for housing. This one's a little bit old-fashioned, but you can still get success. I mean, I find folks who search through various different conduits will have the most success in terms of getting housing the fastest. So there are still landlords and property managers who post ads in newspapers and local advertisements for available units. It's not, a lot of folks don't use it nowadays, but I would still keep your eyes peeled for listings in local newspapers. Online is the most successful, I think. Most brokers, property managers, landlords will post available units online. Some of the major places you can go to look for affordable units are ones you're probably already aware of, including Craigslist, Trulia, Zillow, Apartments.com. Some places you might not think to look is GoSection8.com. Metro Housing, Boston's website, has landlords who are used to working with voucher holders, so they do post listings on there. Cambridge Housing Authority has listings on their website of available units. In fact, most housing authorities do have listings on their website of landlords they work with who want to work with voucher holders. So definitely utilize, basic online search engines online, the common ones like Trulia, Craigslist, but also use the housing authority websites as well. Brokers. This one is a bit tricky. The greater Boston rental market is saturated with brokers. And for those who don't know, brokers are essentially a middleman between you and the landlord. Landlords hire brokers to fill vacant units and they accrue a fee. So that fee can be up to 1 month's worth of rent for that particular unit. It cannot be more than that. Sometimes it's half a month's rent for a fee. Sometimes it's a full month for a fee. Sometimes the landlords do pay the fee in full. So if you can afford it, they're a great resource because they have a financial incentive to secure housing for you. So if they get you into an apartment, they see a payday. So if you can afford a broker fee, it's a great resource to utilize. However, like I said, not everyone has the money to afford 1 month's broker fee on top of all the other expenses that go along with moving into housing. So never be afraid to ask if you really like a unit, especially this time of year. Typically, the summertime is the most busy time of year in the greater Boston housing market because we're dealing with the college competition, where a lot of landlords are having applicants pay the fee and they're not willing to waive the fee because they know the market's competitive and they know someone is going to pay that fee. However, if you see an ad, now when the market's a little bit slower between now and say April of next year, even if it has a fee listed, don't be afraid to ask, hey, would the landlord be willing to waive the fee or pay the fee? You never know because the market slows down considerably after September 1 in Cambridge, Boston, really all over. So never be afraid to ask if they're willing to waive the fee. This seems simple, but I've had a lot of luck with this. Look for signs around town. Some landlords and property managers do things the old-fashioned way. If they have a vacant unit, they'll post a sign out the apartment saying vacant units available, call this number. So if you happen to be walking around town, see a sign, write down the number. If you're driving around, please be safe, but maybe park outside, take a quick picture, and give them a call. And ask family and friends. A lot of landlords and property managers really don't like to advertise. They like word of mouth advertising and asking people if they have anyone who they know who would be a good tenant who's looking for a 1-bedroom or an available apartment in the area. So ask family, friends, any resource you can tap into is good. So like I said, the more conduits you utilize when looking for housing, the better chance you are going to have of securing something. Now, when you're searching, here's some important questions to ask, ask the landlords or brokers, whoever's showing the unit. Some of these can be obvious. Other times, you're so focused on getting into an apartment, you forget to ask some of these questions. They are important. First, are pets allowed? Many apartments, especially around Cambridge and Boston, have very strict rules regarding pets. Most of them allow cats, some of them allow small dogs, but just be very sure to make sure you know exactly what kind of pets are allowed there. Some only allow specific breeds, so make sure if you are a pet owner, you have the information about your pet available. Now, landlords cannot discriminate against applicants who have a service animal. So if it's a service animal, they cannot deny you for having a service animal. They have to accept you for that. However, please make note, there's a difference between a service animal and an emotional support animal. I don't know what the current laws are right now. However, even if you have a letter from your doctor saying you have an emotional support animal, they might not have the same protections as a service animal. I had a case out in Worcester probably 4 or 5 years ago where a landlord was evicting a family for having an emotional support animal. It went to court, but because it wasn't a service animal, it didn't have the same protections. Again, I don't know if the laws have changed since then, but just be very aware of that. So emotional support and service, animals and pets are two very different things. Parking, especially in the city, you want to know if there's parking available either on site or if there's off-street parking. You'd want to know if they charge for parking on site. Some parking spots can be rather expensive, up to $200 a month, sometimes more, both in Cambridge, Boston, and all around. Also, if they have on-street parking, you're going to require to get a parking permit from the city. Most city parking permits for residents are free, but I would ask, to see if there's a fee involved, and also be very mindful of street cleaning. I think anyone who's lived in the greater Boston area long enough has been the victim of a street cleaning tow or ticketing at one point or another. So be very aware when street cleaning days are, where you can park and when. Public transportation, again, seems obvious, but it's important. Make sure that if you do rely on public transportation, you're close to a stop, that you can readily access it. And it's a place that, if there's a foot of snow on the ground, us living in New England, that you can get to and from, easily. Laundry on site. This is very important. So, ask if it's coin operated, ask if it's a card. Some coin operated machines, you'd have to rely to go on the bank to get quarters, once or twice a week. Some have pay cards. What's the cost per load of laundry? And if they don't have laundry on site, where's the closest laundromat? So, like I said, I would always envision when you're searching, no matter where you're going, if you're going to and from a laundromat, always envision a foot of snow on the ground living in New England. Is that something that you can do? Can you get to the closest laundromat and back to your apartment carrying a load of laundry or transporting it? So these are things to keep of the forefront of your mind while you're searching. And don't be afraid to ask the property manager, landlord, where the closest whatever is, whether it be a supermarket, pharmacy, barbershop, post office. These are all services you're going to have to go to on a regular basis. And if it's something that you can't access readily or easily, it might be a factor in whether or not you accept that apartment. Another major thing to consider, are there any utilities included? Your landlord can only charge you for gas, electricity, hot water, and heat if your apartment has separate meters for gas and electricity, and you agree in writing to pay for those utilities in your lease. Usually the landlord must pay for water. About 99% of the times they do pay for the water there. They can only bill you for water if there is a separate meter and there are low flow toilets and showers, and you've agreed to pay for water in the lease agreement. The landlord has, and if the landlord has filed the right paperwork with whichever city or town that would allow them to do that. Again, we all live in New England, and this is a big, big factor. Do they provide shoveling or plowing services at the address? Most of the larger, building management companies do provide snow removal, but some of the small landlords do not. So be sure to ask that, because like I said, you don't want to take a place just to find out you have to shovel yourself out in the middle of January, February. Not everyone can do that. So be sure to get a very clear answer if that's something they can do. And make sure that they have that in the lease agreement as well. You could see a landlord say, oh yeah, I plow, I shovel, but if it's not in writing in the lease agreements, that doesn't mean anything. So make sure that they have that in the lease agreement if shoveling and plowing is something that they could do. What are the moving costs? I mean, this is probably one of the most important questions because it's really going to determine what you're going to have to put together financially to secure a unit. Moving costs can include a security deposit, first month's rent, a broker fee if you're utilizing a broker, or a key deposit along with a lot of other things. It's also important to consider, outside moving costs that might not be directly related in the lease agreement, such as, do you have family or friends who can help you move? Are you going to have to rent a U-Haul truck? Are you going to have to buy insurance for the U-Haul truck? Are you going to have to hire a moving company? Are you going to have to, purchase a storage or rent out a storage facility to put, possessions in there, while you're transitioning from one unit to another? Or if you're downgrading into a smaller unit, are you going to have to pay a monthly storage unit bill? So again, all things to consider while you're looking and when you're planning the move financially. This is very important. What can and can't a landlord charge you in Massachusetts? They can charge you first month's rent, last month's rent, a security deposit, but it can only be the equivalent of 1 month's rent in Massachusetts. They can't charge you a penny more than 1 month's rent. In other states, they can charge you more, not in Massachusetts. They can charge you the cost of buying and installing a new lock for the unit, or if they are utilizing a broker, they can charge you a broker fee. But that broker fee, like I said before, can only be the equivalent of 1 month's rent or less. Things they can't charge you for are holding fees. That's, hey, you have to put down this amount of money while we process your application. They can't charge you a rental fee, a pet fee, or an application fee. Now, this is important because I'm sure some of you are watching this right now saying, wait a minute, I've applied for units in the past and I had to put down a holding fee. I've had to pay a $30 application fee. Just because technically they're not allowed to do it doesn't mean that a lot of landlords and even licensed brokers still don't ask for those fees. So if they are asking for those fees, you can tell them, say, hey, you can't be charging me that. Or, if it makes the process easier, some people are allowed just to pay the $30 application fee, but I would strongly encourage you to avoid those because they should not be charging you those fees. And for a little further in the presentation, I'll be going into, if you feel like someone is practicing unfair housing, there's places you can report that to, and I'll be covering that shortly. When you attend a viewing, this is, again, very important to consider. You almost have to treat it like a job interview. First impressions, like anything else, are very, very important. Dress appropriately. You don't have to dress in a tuxedo or a suit and tie, but look presentable. Don't be afraid to ask questions about the unit. Like I said, where's the closest supermarket? Does it have laundry in the building? Is there parking available? Do you allow cats? Landlords, believe it or not, like it when you're asking these questions because it shows you're very interested in the unit and you want to know, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and what's available. Again, you want to make sure that this unit is right for you. This is where you're going to be living. You want to make sure it's a place you're going to be comfortable in and happy in. And like I said, all the documents we mentioned earlier, make sure you have that in a folder ready to go. I can't tell you how impressed landlords are when they see someone who already has copies of their photo ID, credit report, proof of income, references ready to go. Those all contribute very, very significantly in making a positive first impression while you're conducting a housing search. So have those ready to go if you can, because it can really make the difference. Any questions regarding what we've covered so far?
Just a question around brokers, real estate agents. So if you wanna, is it the same meaning, brokers?
Yeah, so I mean, it's real estate agents, that term really comes from folks who kind of purchase or sell houses and stuff like that, but they're really interchangeable. Broker is a term that is really more used for the rental market. However, they have to be licensed to be a broker or a real estate agent in Massachusetts. You have to be licensed with the state. And it's very important to make sure that whoever you're dealing with is in fact a licensed broker in the state. And in a little, pretty soon in the presentation, I'll be showing you where you can go to verify that the individual you're dealing with is in fact a licensed broker. So if someone's charging a fee, you want to make sure that they have the credentials to be a broker and collect that fee essentially.
All right, and so that was it for my questions.
Okay. All right, next we're going to dive into scams that are unfortunately very prevalent, especially online. Some are more obvious than others, but people fall.
Brian, I'm
Yep.
going to interrupt you. There was one more question about
Sure.
documents that just came in just as you started. My
Mhm.
apologies for interrupting.
No worries.
The question is whether or not you leave copies of your personal documents with the landlord. For an example, an ID.
If you need copies ready to go,
When meeting with the landlord, do you leave copies of your personal documents with the landlord?
I would say if it's an apartment that you're at and you're very interested in, I think it's beneficial to submit everything as quickly as possible because the rental market in Massachusetts is very, very competitive. Okay, it does slow down between September 1 and April, but it still is a competitive market. So you want to give yourself an edge. The whole purpose of having those documents ready at the viewing is to make sure your application is processed as quickly as possible. They can run whatever screening procedures they need on you to get you approved as quickly as possible. So yes, it doesn't hurt to have copies ready to go.
Thank you, Ryan.
Scams. Like I said, unfortunately, online scams are very prevalent. I mean, there are other housing scams that aren't online, but most of them are online. Anyone can fall victim to them. It could be, senior citizens, folks who, aren't familiar with how the rental market works online, and even folks who are, experienced and familiar with it. Anyone can fall victim to it. So it's important to know what kind of scams are out there and how to avoid falling victim to them. Some red flags to be aware of. The advertised price is much lower than that of similar properties. If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. So keep that in mind. Ads for the property have grammatical and spelling errors or overused capital letters. If they're insisting that there's only a third party you can work with and you can't have any communication with the landlord, that's a bit of a red flag there to kind of be mindful of. Now, there's a difference when I say third party. There's a difference between a licensed broker who you verified who you're working with and some go between mystery man. The owner or agent requires you to sign the lease before you see the rental property. Never sign anything or give money to anyone until you've seen the property. There's a lot of places that say, oh, well, I'm out of the state, I'm out of the country right now, so I can't view it. But here are some pictures of the interior. You're welcome to drive by and see the exterior. If you'd like it, send me the money for the first month's rent and I'll send you the lease information. The owner or agent isn't able to let you enter the home or apartment or charges you a fee to view it. No one should be charging you a fee to see any kind of unit. The owner or agent uses high pressure sales tactics. Now, there's a difference between a broker or a landlord telling you, hey, I've got a lot of applications. This is going to go quick. If you want it, I recommend you get the application to me very quickly. I'm talking about texts every other hour saying, hey, you got to lock this down. You got to put down a security deposit. If there is that much demand for it, they're not going to be chasing down applicants to put money down on an apartment because they know it's going to get rented regardless. So if you're facing, someone who's claiming to be a broker or a landlord who's saying, hey, I really like you, I want you to have this, but you have to get us this money quickly, that's a bit of a red flag right there. So they very rarely do they chase applicants down aggressively. So if someone is, that's something to be wary about. Ways to protect yourself from scams. Don't wire money as a deposit for payments. There is no paper trail to that. Any transaction or any money that you provide for a security deposit to a landlord or a broker fee, make sure you have documentation either in the form of a receipt or something. You want to have documentation. We already went over don't give in to high pressure sales tactics. Never pay a security deposit of first month's rent before you sign a lease. That is unheard of. Don't rent a property that you are unable to see before signing the agreement. Don't send money for rentals overseas. And don't give your personal information or social security number to a property owner without verifying their identity. How to verify who you're dealing with. Rental agent can charge a finder's fee only if they are a licensed real estate broker or salesperson. The broker must provide a written notice to prospective tenants with information about the fee and whether or not it is paid if the tenancy is not created. You should never have to pay a broker fee unless you are accepted and get into that unit. If the rental agent is also the landlord, the law may prohibit them from charging a finder's fee. To find out if a rental agent is a licensed real estate broker, go to the internet, and this link right here, if you click on it, you can just enter that individual's name. Make sure you get a business card or something like that, and it will tell you if they have a professional broker's license in Massachusetts. And it'll also show whether or not it's active or not. So make sure it's an active license. To verify if who you're talking to is the actual property owner. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I don't feel comfortable giving my personal information until I verify that you are indeed the property owner. Could you provide me a deed or proof of ownership of the property? Most landlords, if they're legit, are not going to have a problem providing that information. Also, most city and town websites, that they have a property database you can go to and see who the owner of that particular property is. I connected the link for the city of Cambridge here in this presentation, but every city and town should have something like that. And you can even call, City Hall or whatever town or city you're living in to confirm that that is the property owner of that address. The application. Things that most rental applications will ask for is your name, date of birth. They will ask for your social security number. I recommend only putting the last four. They will need to do some of your social security information to verify that you are who you are in terms of doing a credit check or background check on you. They'll ask for a contact phone number and email. If you are a vehicle owner, they'll ask for the vehicle information. They'll also ask for your rental history, your current landlords, former landlords, current employer, former employer, source of income. This is all stuff they want to make sure that you do have a stable housing history and that you can afford either your portion of the rent or the rent in full. They'll also ask for a personal reference, a credit reference, emergency contact. A lot of them will ask for bank information. You do not have to give them detailed bank information. If you bank at Bank of America, you can just put Bank of America, Cambridge branch. Some of them will ask for account numbers. Do not put your account numbers on any application, even if it asks for it. It will also ask for if you are a convicted felon, if you have a felony conviction. Now, if you're unsure, a lot of folks seal their CORIs, and we'll get into that in more detail later in the presentation. But if you're unsure, I would always put yes, because as soon as they do a background check on you and you put no when something comes up, they can immediately disqualify you. But if you do have a felony conviction, there's workarounds, there's ways to work around that, and we'll go into that in further detail, but you want to be as transparent as possible when applying. And also, if you're applying with co-tenants who are over the age of 18, almost always they have to submit separate applications of their own. We already went over to only provide the last four of your social security, current and former landlord information, personal references. Please don't let it be a family member. That doesn't look good if you're using your mom, or your dad, or your sister as a personal reference. Most landlords will think Well, how come they don't have any other personal references besides family? So make sure it's someone other than family. If you're asking for a credit reference, you can just put, whatever bank you're banking at. Again, don't put any account numbers. And again, unless you're positive about a criminal record being sealed, always be honest and put yes if you think you do have something on there. Any questions so far?
Let's check our questions here, Ryan. No questions.
Okay. Next, we're going to launch into the tenant screening process. And this is what landlords do to decide whether or not they're going to accept you as an applicant. Why do landlords conduct screenings? Most landlords check out and screen people to make sure that you're going to pay your rent on time, you're going to comply with the lease conditions, you're going to keep that apartment in good standing, you're not going to damage it or cause any noise complaints. And they're going to ask that for information where they can make a reasonable determination on whether or not they're going to accept you as a tenant, which includes date of birth, some of your housing history. They want to be able to verify that you are going to be a good tenant. And again, if you are untruthful or you put wrong or misleading information on an application, it can really haunt you further down the road, especially when you're dealing with the public housing factor and housing authorities. If you're dishonest or leave something out of an application, that could haunt you further down the road when applying to public housing in the future. So just try to be as transparent as possible. What if a landlord won't rent to me because I have a voucher? In Massachusetts, and this is important, it is illegal for a landlord to discriminate against anyone for having a voucher, okay? It's the same as just discriminating or turning someone down for housing based on the color of their skin, sexual orientation, religious affiliation. It is discrimination, plain and simple. They cannot tell you, I'm sorry, I don't rent to Section 8 or voucher holders. That is straight up discrimination. They can deny you for other things if they feel like your credit isn't good enough, or if you have a criminal record they don't feel comfortable renting to you. They can deny you for criminal record. That's not a protected class. But like I said, they cannot deny you for being a voucher holder, okay, or having children under the age of 6 or anything like that. And we'll go into more detail on how to report if you do feel like you are being discriminated against, either because you're a voucher holder or for any other reason. There are avenues that you can report that, and they are followed up on. And we'll go into more detail in a second about that. If you feel like you're being discriminated against because you have a Section 8 voucher, you need to act right away. Don't wait a week. Don't let it simmer. Write down exactly what happened. You should then contact if you're a voucher holder, contact the housing authority that you're working with that gave you the voucher and explain what happened. Housing authorities and agencies have a duty to report what's going on if discrimination is being reported to them. In addition, you can arrange a test of the landlord. Testing is a method to investigate a landlord's behavior to help determine whether or not that person is legally discriminating against somebody. This is something that a lot of agencies do. They hire workers to pose as applicants. And if there's evidence that discrimination is going on, they're going to hold that property manager or landlord accountable. So it's not, if you do file a complaint, it's not something that floats off and disappears. It is looked into, and if they find that landlord or property manager is practicing discriminatory practices, they hold that person accountable. If you feel there's enough evidence to show you're being illegally discriminated against, you can file a discrimination complaint with a local, state, or federal government agency. The housing agency that gave you your voucher must give you information about how to file and fill out a discrimination complaint. You can also file a complaint with the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, and you should also call your local legal services office. So I think the one in Massachusetts is located on Ashburton Place, and the link there will take you there. So if you file a report that saying that you've been discriminated against, you feel like you've been discriminated against, just be sure to do it as quickly as possible from when the time happened and provide as much detail as possible. Okay, next we're going to go into.
Ryan, I'm sorry, I'm keep interrupting you. The other, for Cambridge, you can also call the Human Rights Commission.
Yep.
At 617-349-4396. So again, the Human Rights Commission in Cambridge is our local agency if you feel you've been discriminated against.
Thank you, Maria.
All right, Ryan.
Now, before we launch into housing barriers, does anyone have any questions?
I don't see any other questions.
Okay,
Okay, so go ahead.
so we'll get right into overcoming housing barriers. Criminal history. There's a lot of information here. I'm not an attorney or a legal professional, so some of this I am familiar with, others I'm not super familiar with. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask. Some of them, some questions I might not know the answer to, but I can always put you in the right direction on who may know the answer to it. So we'll get right in here. If you do have a criminal record, I think it's important to request a copy of your CORI. See what's on there, make sure it's accurate and up to date. I can't tell you how many times that I've worked with someone who's a voucher holder or someone applying for housing who was denied for criminal history that they never had. Folks can use your name as an alias. They can, it's especially, before modern technology, there can be mistakes on a CORI. So make sure you can request a copy of your CORI and make sure that it's accurate and up to date. To request a copy of your CORI, you must submit a CORI request form to the Department of Criminal Justice Information Services, or you can use the Department of Criminal Justice Information Services' new online criminal history request service called iCORI. If you can use iCORI, it's absolutely fantastic. It's much quicker, it's easy to navigate, and it'll get you the results you need much quicker. If you use the CORI request form, the written form, you'll need a Notary Public to notarize your signature. Notary Publics can be found at most town clerk's offices, local banks, real estate offices, lawyers' offices, and travel agencies. They can't charge you more than $1.25 for notarizing a document. There is a fee of $25 for your CORI after you have the request form notarized. Mail it according to the instructions along with a check or money order for the $25 fee and a stamped envelope addressed to yourself. If you cannot afford the fee, you can also submit an affidavit of indigency requesting that this fee be waived. You qualify for this if you receive public assistance such as SSI, EAEDC, FDC, Medicaid, or veterans benefits, including service connection or Chapter 115 benefits. Your income after taxes is under 125% of the current poverty guidelines. If you are unable to pay the fee without depriving yourself, your family of necessities of life, such as food, shelter, and clothing. If you only qualify, then you must submit a supplement to affidavit indigency form, more information. You don't have to submit the supplement if you qualify under A or B. And the affidavit of indigency is attached to the CORI request form, so that should be all included in one. You should get a copy of your CORI in the mail about 2 weeks after submitting a request. However, processing times can vary. Again, if you do have access to a computer, I highly recommend using iCORI as opposed to the physical request form. Check your CORI for mistakes. If you do see a mistake on your CORI or an offense that might have been dismissed or continued without finding, go to local court where the charge is handled and ask for a copy of the docket entry sheet, which states what actually happened in the case. If you find that a case has been dismissed or information is inaccurate there, go to the probation officer to see if they can update it and change the information in the system. If you don't get a lot of luck with the probation officer at that particular courthouse, you can always ask to speak with your supervisor, who is the chief probation officer for that court. If the probation officer will not make the change, you can also go to file a complaint with the Office of the Commissioner of Probation, and I have that contact number listed below. If all else fails, you may request that the DJIS review your request and order the probation office to make the correction. Your CORI report may in fact have the criminal record of someone else with a name similar to yours. It sounds ridiculous, but I've seen this happen. If that is the case, complete the CORI complaint provided by the DCJIS. In addition, some may have used your name as an alias. As you see that, the name in your criminal record, another person is on your CORI. You can complete a petition to be considered a victim of identity theft. And that website, the DCJIS website, has information. I included a link to that below as well. Clarifying defaults. If you had to appear in court before and for some reason you didn't appear, usually those can be cleared up relatively easily. So I talked to a criminal attorney to assess the risk of clearing it up. If you had an attorney for the original case, reach out to them, see if that person is willing to offer you advice and help you out in terms of clearing that up. If you're on probation, your case was continued without a finding, you should ask the probation officer to write you a favorable recommendation telling the housing agency or landlord you are complying to all terms of probation. Probation officer can be your best friend or your worst enemy. If you're complying with terms of probation, use them as an asset. You can also ask your attorney to request a court to shorten the continuance without a finding or probation period, but you should be sure to discuss the pros and cons of doing that, preferably with an attorney. You can ask the court to revise or revoke a sentence. Sometimes, though rarely, your criminal defense lawyer may be able to file a motion and get a sentence revised or revoked, or revoke a sentence or 60 days after any order from an appellate court. While this is being done, if you are challenging the denial of housing, the housing agency should hold your appeal open for up to 90 days. If you're low income and meet certain income guidelines, you have the right to a public defender or private attorney that is appointed by the court to help you file a motion to revise or revoke. If you did not originally have a public defender or appointed counsel, or you feel that that attorney was somehow ineffective or failed to adequately represent you, contact your local bar advocate program in writing and ask them to assign an attorney to you for the motion. If you do have a CORI that's not sealed, try explaining to the landlord that there are circumstances that aren't apparent on the CORI. Pull together the best information that you can to explain your case. Information that be helpful includes letters from counselors, social service agencies explaining that you've gone through rehabilitation. If your offense conduct was related with maybe substance abuse and you've been sober for a period of time, please utilize social workers or clinicians that you may be working with to write letters of support. Evidence shows your behavior was in self-defense. If you were in a domestic violence situation, show that the result of the case was a result of domestic violence. Evidence that shows a change in circumstance. For example, if you were living with a family member who was causing disturbances and caused issues criminally in the household, you can show that person is no longer living in your household. Evidence that the offense was not serious or did not cause anyone harm. And evidence in a case of the file that shows a seemingly serious case was actually minor. They have, some offenses can sound a lot more serious than they are. Public lewd and lascivious behavior could be a situation of urinating in public, but when they hear public lewd and lascivious behavior, that sounds a lot worse. So make sure if they are details that can make you appear better on paper, please bring everything to the table. This is the most effective way to work with CORIs. Petition to seal your record. Depending on the age and nature of the offense, you may be able to seal a record. Well, a sealed record remains as part of your record. Sealing it means requesters, including housing agencies and landlords, will not have access to that sealed record. Now, probation offices, police departments, courts will still have access to your criminal record in full, but landlords, property managers no longer have access to certain felony offenses once it is sealed. Getting your record sealed means that the record is moved to a separate database and is not available to most requesters. The laws relating to sealing a criminal record can be quite complicated. In addition, they may change due to pending legislation. Consult the CORI section on masslegalhelp.com for any changes or updates. If you're on a housing wait list, try to get eligible records sealed before you reach the top of the list because it can take time. You may be able to get a record sealed by the court that dealt with the case if it ended favorably, or if there was a conviction and a certain amount of time has passed. You may be able to get it sealed by the Office of the Commissioner of Probation. Some offenses are not eligible for sealing. These include sex offenses who are required to register, are not entitled to relief under the sealing laws. In addition, certain convictions relating to firearms, crimes against public justice, and the State Ethics Act are not sealable. For cases when there was a conviction where you pled guilty or found guilty and were sentenced, or your cases continue without finding with probation, you can get the case sealed only after a certain amount of time has passed. Massachusetts allows certain criminal records to be sealed after a waiting period. Misdemeanor convictions can be sealed after 10 years. Felony convictions can be sealed after 15 years. The waiting period for each case begins at the final disposition in which that case ended, such as when a person is released from probation or from incarceration. This is very important. The waiting period, you cannot have another felony conviction. So let's say if you stop probation and you racked up 4 felonies, and then 10 years later you went to get that originally felony sealed. If you racked up 4 felonies in the meantime, that doesn't count. You have to show a clean record during that time. Now, I mean, certain traffic tickets and stuff like that aren't going to count against you, but you have to have a clean record during that period to be eligible to have that sealed. If you're trying to get a conviction sealed after the 10 or 15-year waiting period has passed, you need to get a form called a petition to seal from the Seals Record Division of the Commissioner of Probation. I left a link to that in the presentation. You can click on and retrieve. There's no fee for this form. Fill it out and send it to the Commissioner of Probation, and they can work on getting that sealed. Any questions regarding CORI or overcoming criminal record barriers when it comes to housing?
Let me just take a quick peek. I don't have any questions, Ryan, so if you want to continue.
Okay. Next, we're going to be going to credits, which is maybe the most important factor when it comes to getting approved for housing. What information is on your credit report? It has basic information about you, such as your social security number, date of birth, current and former addresses, and employees. It also lists what debts you owe and any amount that is due. In addition, it will include a summary of the number of times that any account was delinquent by 30, 60, or 90 days. The dates of the most recent delinquencies and the dates of the most severe delinquencies. It will also list any accounts that have been turned over to a collection agency or for which there are any court judgments against you. That includes eviction proceedings. It could contain public information about criminal arrests, convictions, and bankruptcies. What's not included in your credit report generally doesn't contain information about your race, religious preference, medical history, personal lifestyle, personal background, or political preference. It can contain information related to your character and reputation. However, it's not going to go into personal comments or opinions about you. Creditors of debt collection agencies such as Cant put in notations that you're a deadbeat or a lousy credit risk. That's not something that's going to be in there. Correcting errors, just like the CORI, there can be errors in your credit report. So make sure before you go looking, if you get a copy of your current credit report, that's going to be helpful, because if there are errors in there, you should correct them before you even start applying. Once you get a copy of your credit report, take a careful look at it. Check to see if there are any mistakes or old information. For example, there might be information from another person's account on your report, or it may show that you still owe a debt that has been paid. Or there might be information about debt that is more than 7 years old. Your credit report can't go back more than 7 years. So if there's information on there that goes back over 7 years, make sure you contact that credit reporting bureau and have them remove that. Information about your accounts can only be reported to 7 years. If you believe that your credit report contains incorrect or old information, you have a right to challenge the accuracy of the report. To do this, write a letter to each reporting company that has reported incorrect information. Tell the credit reporting company what you believe is incomplete or inaccurate, why you believe it's incomplete or inaccurate, and request that they correct the information. Include with the letter copies of any documents that show that the information is wrong or misleading, and keep a copy of your letter and the originals of any supporting documentations.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
I'm being asked to let you know we're at 4 o'clock and we need to end. So I'm not quite sure how far.
Okay, let me see. We should probably be wrapping up in the next 15 minutes or so.
Okay, let me see what, we're having some technical difficulties at this point on the back end. Just waiting on a response if you wanted to continue talking.
Sure. So for sake of time, I'm going to skip over a lot of the fine details instead of just reading this to you. So this information will be available on the slideshow. I just want to make sure I'm hitting some of the most important aspects of the presentation. So you get a credit report that is terrible and not good. What do you do now? This sounds simple, but it can really help you out. Offer to make minimal payments to a landlord or agency that you owe money to, even if it's $5, $10 a month. The whole point is to show that you're making incremental payoffs and you're working to pay off that debt. That can help you significantly.
Brian, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. Stephanie, for the card service, are you able to stay on after 4?
I actually have an appointment. I can stay until 4:15 at the very, very latest, but that's pushing it for me. So if we can definitely be done, I can manage it.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay, so we'll try to do a speed run of this last section right here. Supply positive but unreported payment history. So if you've been living in a place, let's say an apartment where you paid rent on time, but that might not be in a credit report, provide documentation that you paid on time. If you have a phone bill or a shelter fee, anything that shows that you are able to pay on a regular basis and consistently that might not be on a credit report, it is beneficial to have. Explain damaging information to landlords. So let's say you were laid off due to an illness or laid off due to COVID and you fell behind on certain bills which negatively affected your credit, show that the reason being is because you were laid off or because you had a medical need that you couldn't work full time. So any additional information like that can be beneficial. Landlords are like anybody else. They're human beings. They understand things happen. So if you can provide documentation or explain the reasoning as to why you might have fallen behind on a certain bill, that can be very beneficial for you. Demonstrate positive income change. You know, if your credit is poor because you were laid off at the time, you weren't working, or you were waiting for, if you had applied for Social Security benefits and waiting for those to take effect, you can show, hey, you know, I fell behind on these bills because I couldn't work. I applied for SSDI and it took a couple months to take effect, but now I have it and I can afford it. And here is proof that I've been catching up on my bills. So any documentation you can show that how your income has changed and how you can afford your portion of the rent would be beneficial. So like I said, having that extra documentation ready to go is also would also be helpful. This is one of the most important ones. Have a third party offer to pay your rent. A lot of folks I talk to are very hesitant about going down this road in the form of a rep payee, which is essentially an agency that you pay a small monthly fee to that pays certain bills for you, whether that's your utility bill or rent payments. However, the majority of the folks who I do work with who do enroll in a rep payee say it's the best thing they ever did. So if you're someone who challenges at managing their finances, that's okay. Like I said, it's a small fee to make sure that the roof stays over your head and the lights stay on. So if you're someone who struggles with managing their finances, this is a great solution. Also, perfect. So you could also apply to different landlords. If you're being denied for a different landlord for credit scores or CORI, apply to different ones. Landlords, like I said, are people like anybody else. They understand people make mistakes. Sometimes they make poor financial decisions, or they might have a criminal record, or their credit might not be the best. So the more documentation you can gather to support your situation, and the different landlords you can apply to are going to be very beneficial. So apply to as many different landlords as possible. Sometimes smaller landlords have more leeway in terms of making a determination than some of the bigger property management companies, who are kind of constrained by their rules in terms of what credit scores they can accept, what income levels they can accept. So apply for as many different landlords as possible if you find that your credit CORI can be challenging. If you don't have any credit history, that's sometimes better than bad credit. There is a difference between no credit and bad credit. Housing history. Landlords are going to want to know past housing history. So make sure when you're filling out your applications, you're putting your housing history in full. A lot of folks are hesitant about putting some of their housing history because they might have been evicted or might have had a bad relationship with the landlord. But like I said, if you fail to put a place you lived at and that shows up on a credit score and a landlord sees that, they might deny you right away thinking you're trying to hide something or being fraudulent in your application. Should you notify prior landlords? The short answer is yes. I would give them a heads up saying, hey, I'm applying for a unit. I'm going to use you as a landlord reference. If you have a landlord who you might not have left on the best terms with, who you might owe money to, it might be a good idea to say, hey, I know I owed you $500 of rental arrears. Can I pay you $50 a month for the next few months to get caught up with that? And can you give me a positive reference? Sorry about that. You can also ask them to give you just a basic standard reference. We're saying you paid rent, you don't have to go into any details if you had a bad tenancy there. So many landlords subscribe to services or report evictions filed in court. Again, going back to First Advantage Safe Rents, this is something that a lot of landlords and property managers go through. So it's important if you can go on there and find out where you stand, that would help you navigate some of the barriers that you may be facing. How to mitigate negative landlord references. If you know that a particular landlord will give you a bad reference, it may be tempting to leave that landlord off the list. However, if you do, like I said, it could hurt you in the long run. So negotiating a simple reference is a good avenue to get over a negative landlord reference or potential negative landlord reference. Negotiate, say, hey, listen, if I pay this amount for arrears, can you give me a basic reference? So if they're looking to get, if you owe them any money for arrears or anything like that, and they're looking to get paid and you come to an agreement, it's worth at least trying. Show that the landlord you might have had was being unfair. Maybe the landlord wasn't taking care of the property. Maybe the health code, they had health code violations, or they weren't keeping up the place up to standard. Provide documents showing that the place wasn't up to standard, or that the landlord was not living up to his end of the lease agreement. Or you could show circumstances have changed, that you've worked on, your income has changed, or you were going through a medical problem at the time where you had to get out of work, you were laid off due to COVID. You've given away a pet that might have been a violation at a previous place you've been staying at. Show any increase in benefits you may be receiving. So all these little pieces together can help. If you don't have any landlord history, that's where we go back on just making sure that you're providing all information about your income, anything like that, that can show you can afford to pay either the rent in full or your portion of the rents. I'm going to stop right now because we are 5 minutes away from 4:15. So that addresses the major barriers. The rest of the presentation goes over the inspection process, lease signing, and general things after you've been approved for a unit. But with that, I'm told we're a little over right now, so I'm going to cut it a bit short.
Yeah, I think the information should be available on House on Cambridge, and the slides should be emailed to the clients who registered for the session. And maybe there's the opportunity to do another session with the remainder of the information. I want to thank you, Stephanie Farrell, for providing the CART services for us. And thanks, Crystal, for being on the back end and keeping us alive, even with our technical difficulties. Crystal, can you provide the slide with the phone numbers for where people can contact us if they have questions? There are some questions. And nothing that we need to answer. So it's possible that we were not able to put up the slide of the contact information. So that will be in the email that will be sent with the slides. It should be one of the in the back of the slides. Should be contact information for the Human Rights Commission, the Multi-Service Center, Ryan McCluskey, and the Office of the Housing Liaison. So I just want to thank you all for spending this afternoon with us. Have a great day. take care. So we're gonna end the session. I don't know that Crystal